Perfect. Thanks. Good morning, everybody. So, when Dave and I talked about this program, and as he introduced, we talked about whether or not the industry is capitalized appropriately going forward. And so I've worked a lot with the Alex Partners automotive team and sort of pulling these thoughts together. And the automotive industry, as you all know, is a very, very capital-intensive business. And so here on this slide, we've broken down the capital requirements into kind of three different buckets. The first bucket on the left, ongoing requirements, is about 10% of sales. You've got to refresh vehicles, you've got to develop new vehicles, new powertrains, new engines, and it takes, on balance, 10% of sales to do that. In the middle, we've got what I would consider cycle-related requirements. Unfortunately, the automotive industry is very cyclical, and we're right now headed into a period of declining sales. When GM was restructured, it was restructured with a break-even point of 10 million units, 10 million North American units. We're at 17 million now. Once you hit break-even in the automotive industry, you generate huge amounts of cash and earnings. And we've seen that in the entire industry for the last 6 years. But we're now headed into a slower period. We've got a lot of lease cars coming off lease. It's killing the used car market. And we think it is going to depress sales perhaps for the next 3 years, maybe down to 15.5 million units. That takes cash. The automotive industry is a big fixed cost industry. When the sales go down, it's very, very difficult to take the costs down commensurate with the decline in sales. And so that takes cash. And when sales unwind, you've got to pay the vendors. When cars roll off of the assembly line, basically the autos are getting paid in 2 or 3 days, and the vendors are getting paid in 45 days. And that takes cash as the sales unwind. And then lastly, we've got the incremental requirements. And I'm going to focus a lot on that because we think it's literally billions of dollars. We've talked about, our firm, we talk about CASE, the connected vehicle, autonomous, shared vehicles, and electric vehicles. And this is been a big part of the program this week, and it's going to be a big part of all of our lives going forward. So let's say, what stands in the way of generating enough cash in order to do what needs to be done? And unfortunately, this chart shows that the return on invested capital in the automotive industry absolutely pales in comparison to high tech. Down near the bottom of the chart, you see that the automakers, this is the OEMs, have a return on invested capital in last year of about 6%. And look up at the top of information services, computers generating phenomenal return on invested capital. And why is that important? Because return on invested capital is a principal driver of valuation of stock price. And if you've got a low return on invested capital and a relatively slow growth industry, you can be pretty well assured that you're going to have a lousy stock price. And if we look at the cash returns, the profits of the OEs for the last few years and their anemic stock price, my view is that the return on invested capital is the reason for that. So down in the middle of this page, I've shown the return on invested capital for a couple of high-tech, Google and Apple. I've also stuck in GE and Bosch, and then over on the right we've got General Motors and Ford. And you see the Google and Apple are in the mid to high teens, and GM and Ford are in the low single digits. This makes it very difficult to attract capital to do the things that need to be done for the CASE, the continuous vehicles. Here's the proof. Look at the stock performance. This is a relative percentage of stock performance for the last 6 years. The top two are Apple and Google. They're about more than 300%. Their stock value has tripled since 12/31/10, and GM and Ford are basically flat. So let's change gears for just a little bit and talk about the CASE challenge. And this is the continuous connected vehicle. On the left side, we've got the consumer satisfaction with the built-in nav system. And look at Tesla, way up at the top. It's been on top since 2013. They've poured tons of money into it, as have the other OEs, and the other OEs are all kind of lumped together. They're about 50%, whereas Tesla is 80% completely satisfied. And on the right side are the downloaded apps, and it's basically the same story. Tesla's put a lot of money into it. It has a tremendous lead. The others are working to catch up. What we have found in the research that Alex has done for many, many years with our automotive survey, we have more than 50 named companies that are now working on autonomous vehicles or systems. In addition to that, there are hundreds, literally hundreds of smaller startup kinds of ventures. It's a huge, huge market and changing very, very rapidly. On the left side, what we found this year is the change, the consumer change in their intention in 2000 at the end of, to use car sharing services more next year than they did this year. And the car sharing, Zipcar, Car2Go, people like that, there was a 1% increase. People said, yeah, 1% said, well, I'm going to use it maybe more than I did last year. But look at ride sharing on the right, Uber, Lyft, people like that, an 18 percentage point increase. All of this change in 1 year. The automotive industry is very used to a slow clock speed of developing new product, of investing in product, and typically investments last for many, many years. Not true in technology. So, could an attitude of not invented here sabotage the return on invested capital? We looked last year and we found that there were 294 CASE partnerships, continuous, autonomous, shared, and electric. And it included Ford had 15, GM 11, VW 15, BMW 32. My hypothesis, our hypothesis would be that efficient use of capital suggests that the industry needs to make greater use of where the industry's technology can be an advantage, but also take advantage of the people like Google who have tremendous capability in technology. And keeping return on invested capital at forefront, I think, includes developing asset-light approaches and includes entering into more partnerships and being open to the idea of not controlling the entire process. So if we don't improve return on invested capital, then the answer may be that those who can't remember the past are condemned to repeat it.